All right, let's jump right into today's explainer. We're looking at a massive structural shift happening right now in German society. It's a shift that's largely being driven by global tensions, but the craziest part is that the impact is landing squarely on the shoulders of high schoolers. We're talking about a brand new reality that's forcing teenagers to make literal, life-altering decisions before they've even taken their final exams.
So picture this scenario for a second. You're a high school student named Elias. You just turned 18, you rent a room, get all your friends together, and celebrate with like 240 bottles of beer. It's a huge milestone, right? A moment of total freedom. But then, just 1 week later, the mail arrives. And inside is a mandatory access key letter from the German Armed Forces, the Bundeswehr. Suddenly, the state is literally tapping you on the shoulder, asking a very heavy question. Are you prepared to be a soldier?
And here's the kicker. Elias is definitely not an isolated case. He is just one of roughly 700,000 Germans turning 18 this year. And under the new military service rules rolling out by January 1, 2026, every single one of those young men is going to get that exact same piece of mail.
The mechanics of this new system are super specific. It works like this. Step 1, you hit your 18th birthday. Step 2, you receive a letter containing a unique access key. And Step 3, you have exactly 4 weeks to log on and submit a mandatory digital questionnaire. The military basically wants to know everything: your health status, your educational background, and, most importantly, your willingness to perform military service.
Now, the psychology behind the survey itself is honestly fascinating. The military asks how interested you are in voluntarily enlisting on a scale from 0 to 10. 0 means absolutely no interest. But, as Elias astutely points out, if you put a 1, just a single tick above 0, you've officially signaled that you could at least imagine it. You instantly become a potential candidate in their database. It's a really subtle but powerful way to build up a recruitment pool.
So Section 1, Germany's troop shortage. Why exactly is the German government suddenly mailing 700,000 teenagers? Well, amid rising global tensions, Germany is rapidly rearming. But all that new hardware means absolutely nothing without motivated recruits to operate it.
Just look at the sheer scale of the challenge here. Over the next 10 years, the Bundeswehr plans to grow its active duty force from around 184,000 personnel to 260,000. That is a massive expansion required just to be fully combat ready. And those numbers? Yeah, they simply aren't going to fill themselves.
To support this push, the German government is totally opening its wallet. This year alone, they plan to spend over 18 billion euros on defense. But as we'll see, money can easily buy equipment. Buying enthusiasm from a skeptical generation, that is an entirely different puzzle.
Because here is the stark reality. According to a Bundeswehr study, only 10% of 16 to 29-year-olds can actually see themselves becoming a soldier. Let that sink in. That means 90% of their target demographic is either fundamentally opposed or just entirely unenthusiastic about putting on a uniform.
Which brings us to Section 2, the recruitment push. Faced with that bleak 10% statistic, the military knows they can't just sit around waiting for applications to roll in. They have to actively go out there and change minds.
To do this, they're showing up at youth career fairs, and they're using highly visceral, totally hands-on marketing tactics. Imagine walking into a career fair at 16, and instead of a recruiter just handing you a boring brochure, they strap a heavy protective plate carrier right onto your chest, hand you a real G36 assault rifle, and have you do squats right there on the exhibition floor. They look these teens in the eye and say, "This plate is your life insurance. It stops a bullet." It's a very aggressive, physical pitch designed to make the reality of being a soldier feel tangible and exciting.
And there are two very different ways this pitch is being received. On one hand, the military is offering some highly attractive perks. We're talking degrees in civilian defense, skills training, paying for your driver's license, and a starting salary of 2,600 euros, which is about 2,200 euros after tax. That's a lot of money straight out of high school. But on the other hand, youth critics view these exact same benefits as luring tactics. They argue the military is basically dangling cash in front of teenagers to override their deep moral objections to war and their genuine, understandable fear of being deployed or killed.
Yet for some young Germans, the message absolutely resonates. Take Tom, for example. He's a 16-year-old from Eastern Germany. For him, the financial perks are totally secondary to a profound sense of patriotic duty. He looks at the democratic society he grew up in and the society he wants his future children to inherit, and he concludes that if democracy is attacked from the outside, it's his responsibility to step up and fight for it.
But then contrast Tom's deep conviction with this incredibly raw quote from his mother.
She is terrified. She points to all the crises happening around the world and expresses deep, deep anxiety over the idea of a draft returning. For a mother to say she cannot even fathom her child holding a weapon or getting shot, it perfectly captures the intense generational anxiety that's currently simmering in households all across Germany.
Moving to Section 3, the youth push back. While the government pushes forward, a really significant portion of the youth demographic is pushing back, leading to highly organized, grassroots resistance against the looming threat of conscription.
You can really see the grit of that resistance in the actions of students like 16-year-old Neo. On March 5th, they organized nationwide school strikes to protest military recruitment happening inside educational spaces. They were literally mixing their own paste out of flour and water just to stick up protest posters. And the stakes here were actually pretty high. With final exams coming up, going on strike during school hours meant racking up unexcused absences. Teachers could legally give them failing grades for skipping tests. But these students deemed the cause important enough to risk their own academic futures.
This resistance is fueled by perspectives like Max's. Max is a student protester whose viewpoint is basically a stark 180-degree turn from Tom's patriotism. Max is critical of the current state of the country and outright refuses to fight for it. He says flatly that if war broke out, there's no way he'd pick up a weapon. He would simply take his loved ones and flee. It is a profound rejection of the traditional social contract between a citizen and the state.
And despite the risks of failing grades and unexcused absences, this anti-war movement just rapidly gained momentum. What started with local groups, like 400 students marching past high schools in Potsdam to tell administrators they didn't want young officers recruiting in their hallways, quickly snowballed into something much, much larger.
50,000. That is the massive number of protesters that organizers say mobilized across 150 locations nationwide. It was a loud, powerful crowd delivering a firm, unambiguous rejection of the military pushing its way into civilian youth spaces.
Finally, Section 4, to serve or not. This really brings all of these threads together. We have a state with a desperate, incredibly expensive need for defense personnel, colliding head-on with a generation that is deeply divided on the morality of war and the obligations of citizenship. Which leaves us with this final, crucial question to ponder. The Bundeswehr has the massive budget, they have the career fairs, and they have the mandatory digital questionnaires. But as Germany rearms, will high starting salaries and appeals to democratic duty actually be enough to overcome a generation's deep-seated fear of conflict and moral skepticism? Think about Elias, sitting there staring at his computer screen, hovering over that 0 to 10 scale. If your number was called, what would you do?